All right, Rick Norberg, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Jeff. Great to be here.
Rick, could you give a little background and intro on yourself for our audience, for anybody who doesn't know who you are?
Sure. Rick Norberg, CEO of Vertikal6. Been in the technology industry now, 24 years. Started off in the mid-90s in tech support, doing outsourced IT support for Microsoft back when it was in the US. Started off with Excel, ended up with Microsoft Exchange. And at that time, late 90s, the email systems were just taking off like crazy. So I went from tech support to consultant, went to work for DEC, which became Compaq. And then went to work as a freelancer for a little while for companies like Fidelity and others in the financial space. And then 2002, I was working for a startup, and I decided to start what the first beginnings of what became Vertikal6. And that was in 2002. Then had another job in Texas where we got acquired. Then had a job in Palo Alto, California, where we got acquired. And in 2006, decided to go full time. And then no one had told me that this big recession thing was going to happen in 2007. I'm kind of glad I didn't know. So back then it was myself, and then it was one, then it was two other guys, and kind of built it up from 07 to 10. Became partners in the larger company in 2010 and grew it with Atreon for about 6 years, and then bought it back in 2015. Yeah. And became Vertikal6. So here we are. Vertikal6 is in the southern New England area. We're located in Rhode Island. We have clients in Mass, Connecticut. This area. We also have a small pocket of clients in Vegas as well. And got about 100 to 120 managed clients and about 50 employees, and been in business now really since 2006, or around 13 years.
Rick, can you tell us a little bit about Vertikal6, the name? Is there a story behind that?
So we had a brand consultant come in, and we looked at about 100 names of different things that we could name the company. And I mean, some of them were like, they sounded like Bunyan creams, like Tan 4 and all kinds of craziness. So it was a process. And then at the end of the day, Vertikal6 kind of struck out because it implied elevation. It implied that, we were focused on what our customers wanted. And the 6 just became our 6 core values. So, and as part of the exercise, we kind of looked at it with a C and a K, and we decided to go with the K because it was just more, kind of hip, for a technology company. But the fun part is that the K domain name was like $40 and the C domain was thousands. So I had to have a C just in case. So I bought it anyway, but that's kind of where the name came from. It was just an exercise that we went through where we looked at, 100 different names, and we looked at 20 different brands, everything from like a bright orange to what we decided upon, which was the blue and the green. So.
Yeah. And as I recall, I mean, before that, as you went through the history, mm-hmm. You basically were Atreon SMB. So you were under the shadow of Atreon, where Tim had, a real driving Cisco business with the Atreon brand. And I thought it was great the way you broke off, did your own thing, and then, came up with your own brand.
Thanks, Dave. I think it was important. It was, the Atreon SMB years were great years because they really helped me grow as, a CEO and running a company, and I got to work under Tim, which was a great tutelage. But as far as the Atreon brand went, it really did have a Cisco slant to it. So it was kind of cool that when we did become Vertikal6, we've always been more of a mid-market SMB shop. So it wasn't so much Cisco, but it was more like Microsoft, outsourced IT, all of those things. It kind of gave us a chance to reposition the brand when we actually rebranded. But, when you first rebrand, it's like, people are like, what? What's Vertikal6 mean? Like, why are you doing this? And then, now that it's been almost 4 years, it's really taken on a life of its own. And I think it's become a really cool symbol of what we've been able to accomplish as a company. So,
yeah, and it's unique. Talk to our audience a little bit, Rick, about where your strengths lie in the business. Where are your primary contributions as a CEO? And how you contribute, how you drive it.
So I think really my primary contributions, I'm really good at taking a look at where we're going and working with our COO, Harry, who well, I know the audience doesn't know, but we work together on what we're going to do to the company and the strategy and how it's going to happen. And my strengths are really in the business development and, where we're going and in the sales end of the business as well as the marketing. So today I take on really more of a sales and marketing BD, CRO type role, whereas the operations is really other people, just because, running the help desk and the engineering team and the dev team and all the other teams that we have has become a life of its own, right? So as we've grown as an organization, we've had to invest in leadership, which you're familiar with, Dave, because you've been a big part of that, training our leaders now for quite some time, I think over 5 years, I think. So, that part of the business has had to mature quickly because a big portion of our headcount is help engineering, all those things.
Well, you're downplaying a little bit. Let me give the audience a little more information here. So, Rick, you're one of the most visionary MSPs, you individually, that I've ever met. You're always thinking way ahead, and but you don't run too fast. But you're really thinking and planning. So you have a very nice balance that most people don't have, that they should consider in some of these areas. I mean, you're very aware of what's coming up, not in 12 months, but in 5 years, and positioning the business for that. And also the way you work with Harry. I mean, Harry's like man's man, type of guy. He's just like, throw Harry the football, or maybe the what's that? What is it? A rugby? Yeah, he's more like a rugby type guy. It's like no pads, nothing. Throw him the ball, he's going to get it to where it needs to go. Yep. And you're very good at not meddling. You give it to him. You guys have total trust, and he lets you do your thing. You let him do his thing. You interact really well. You communicate really well. Most leaders really struggle with that. And I want to just compliment you. I came in and worked with you. I think what did we work closely together for about a year, maybe a year and a half or so. And then since then, we've trained a lot of your leaders in the Certified Leader Program. And you basically throw those up and coming leaders in there, which is great. But the two of you, I just noticed it in working closely with you guys and being on site many times. You guys have a very balanced working relationships that I can tell you, like 80% to 90% of the MSP owner partnerships out there, would seriously envy and love to have in any business, because partnerships are tough, and I know you're the main owner, but I mean, it's really a close partnership you have with Harry.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I'm very grateful. And it's cool that our skill sets are diverse enough where, there's certain things that I want to do and that I excel at, and there's certain things he wants to do and he excels at. And very rarely is there a lot of overlap on those. So, and I think we do make decisions as a team, partner together, make things happen. And then, I think any company, if you really want to grow it, you have to trust your team and your leaders and your people. And it's not just Harry, it's everyone on the team. If I don't trust them to execute, then I can't move on, right? You're constantly worried about what's going to happen next. So, and I do see a lot of people that I know, and I've been in the community here for a while, that you got to let go, man. You got to let go and move on if you're going to let it grow, right? So you can't be worried about $2 million problems when you're a $6 million MSP. You just can't do it. So.
Yeah. And so I'm kind of curious, does anything come to mind where you think of a time where you really, really, really wanted to do something and you brought it to Harry and Harry said, not yet, or no?
And well, that's happened because today, so I think that, we work well together as a team because I can be overly optimistic and Harry's much more of a realist. He's still an optimist for sure, but, I may bring something to the table where, like right now, like the business is changing again. So to take a little bit of a step back, you mentioned the visionary thing of how this industry is constantly evolving. So if we go back to like 2008, you've got this paradigm shift where we move from exchange servers to hosted exchange, right? So in 2007, we launched our own hosted exchange offering. In 2011, we moved to Aptix, which was like a Gen 1 outsourced email provider. And then when Microsoft finally moved past BPOS and got O365 right, we took all of our seats and we moved into O365. So now, I've not sold an exchange server without someone kicking and screaming for a long time now, right? mean, we still occasionally sell them, but it's because someone's like, I don't trust the cloud. And I'm like, oh, well, whatever. If it is what it is. Life moves on. But for the most part now, everyone is on hosted email. And we're going through another paradigm shift today where there's a lot of on-prem servers, and Gen 1, we've moved into private cloud, right? So we have a lot of customers on our private cloud, and a lot of people have outsourced it. And now it's the public cloud Azure thing, where before Azure was too expensive. Now it's back in line with what things should be, but it needs to be actively managed. Microsoft's made it clear what their vision is. And you look at it and you go, okay, well, this is what's happening next. Not only is the infrastructure going to change, but what is going to be in 3 to 4 years is all the AI, analytics, big data, all the other things that Azure is going to bring to the table that you won't be able to do in a private cloud because you just don't have the resources, the time, or the money. So we're going through that transition now, but it's one of those ones where it's slowly happening, right? So we're looking at our own infrastructure that we've hosted in our own data center. Should we move that to Azure? What does that look like? New customers that are coming in, do we move them? Is it hybrid? Is it all cloud? So we're going through this massive education process on Azure. And this is one of the things that actually Harry was advocating for before I was. And he's like, dude, we got to look at this. And, he went to Insight, I think, in Vegas last month. And then when he got back, we talked about it. And now we're working through all the numbers on it because there'll be times when it doesn't make sense, times when it does. But as time goes on, it's clear that this is going to be more of a Microsoft ecosystem. And what the MSP's job will do is help desk, support, big data, strategy. Where can I take my business? How can I grow it? What can you do to help me? How can I align my strategy with my IT objectives? How can you help my organization become amazing? And that's what we do. I mean, our number one core value is behind me, which is care deeply. And I think that's the hallmark of what and who Vertikal6 is. And we've got to change with the times like everybody else.
Now, one other aspect of your business that so many MSPs struggle with, and I think people in other industries do also, is you've done very good at being systematic in setting up your VCIOs or the people that are interacting, with your clients. Is Meredith still part of the team?
She is. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've got these people, so you don't have to bear that whole burden, where you can kind of be that leading visionary, but you've put some structure in place where you have multiple VCIOs that are going back in and really taking care of the clients. And what did you just say? Giving them technology services that help them be awesome. Is that what you said?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we did a study on our unique selling proposition, unique value proposition. We had a consultant come in and go through all this. And really the number one thing that we provide is peace of mind. And it's so true. If you look at the customers that we take on, the vendors that we displace, the evolution of a customer, most of the times I'm not getting what I need to be awesome. So how can you help me? And that's the best customer for us. It really is. The whole business and I just defined a new sales process, which starts with a scorecard, then a credentialized deck, then an assessment, and then a pitch. But the scorecard is designed to vet out the customers or partners that just don't meet our criteria. Where before we'd pursue anything, now we're becoming very selective about the deals that we pursue.
Yeah. So what does it mean that they don't meet your criteria?
So one of the things that we provide is that partnership 24/7 help desk. I mean, our operation well, and I always forget to pitch it the correct way, but we are 24/7 staffed in-house. We're HIPAA certified, fingerprinted, background checked. We're basically, you say jump, we say how high. And the type of customer that we attract and do well with is someone that values that partnership, that values, I want you to be my IT team and make things happen for me. If we go into a customer and they're like, hey, I'm letting you know right now, my decision criteria is absolute lowest price. I don't care about anything else. Then we're just like, okay, awesome. Have a great day. It's been nice to know you. When that doesn't work out for you in a year, here's my business card, because it won't. You'll be miserable. Give me a call. And that works a lot of the times. I've taken on 2 new customers this year, which are ones that last year I was like, no, you don't qualify. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. And talk about that staffing 24/7 here in the US versus outsourcing overseas, because the focus is on cost.
Well, we found that it's not exponentially more expensive to have the staff here in the US. We like to think that we're positioned pretty well in the middle of the market between the lowest cost provider and high cost providers. We're like right in that center sweet spot. And by having the resources in-house, we can control the user experience. So when you outsource it, which we tried to do, and had a front row seat to that,
Yeah.
you can't control the delivery experience, and you can't control the customer experience. And when you can't do that, then you're not capable of really getting to know your client base and servicing them well. So we tried outsourcing it to another country, and then pulled it back in-house. And we work really hard to make sure that the third shift, has become more and more responsible over time. They do backup checks, patching, all of that stuff, in addition to taking calls, because they're working the overnights. And I think it provides just a much better user experience, having that ability. And it's not like we're on call. No matter when you call, we're available. So it's 24/7 work.
Now, you were thinking about making that available to the other MSPs, also providing that service for other MSPs that wanted that extra shift. How's that gone?
Well, I mean, we've got some bigger MSPs that we provide, that service to, because they don't want to be in the help desk world. But honestly, it's been one of those things where I thought it would work out better than it did, but I've had some serious challenges with other people in our market space. There's a lot of fear. Like I tried to start we have a thing in this area called the Tech Collective, where I tried to start a committee of companies like ours, a couple that were bigger, a lot that were smaller. I showed up to the meeting and I was alone. People are just afraid that you're going to steal their customers, and we can't be frenemies. And, it's really sad. I mean, I've joined a mastermind group recently through Ingram, which has 4 companies in the UK, 2 in Canada, 1 in Atlanta, where it's all MSPs and VARs, and we talk at a very intimate level about our businesses. And it's been hugely helpful, to go oh, well, hey, if you've got this BCIO, what pull through do you expect from them on a yearly basis, and how do you break that up into a quota or just a guideline? And it's oh, we do this, we do that, we do this. That's stuff that I didn't have any knowledge of or any access to until just recently. So it's been a really good experience. And I think I kind of skipped out on the VCIOs, but it's been a hugely amazing thing to free my time up. It's kind of funny, as time has gone on, I'm a CISSP, I'm an MCSE, but I don't know anything anymore. It's those days are over. They're gone. Installing Windows 2000. Who needs that skill set? My CISSP is from 2006. It's 13 years ago. So I've really become very non-technical as the business has grown, and it's been cool. I'm psyched to be more of a business leader and a sales guy than a technician or an engineer at this point. So I've got great people that do that for us. They're amazing. We invest in them heavily, and our customers love them. So I'm totally cool with letting that go.
Can you talk to us on how you invest in them heavily? You just said that, and I think that's pretty unique. I mean, a lot of companies feel they're too busy and they don't get structured on the training side, and you see it in their service delivery.
Well, it's like that old acronym, right? What if we invest in our people when they leave? But what if we don't invest in them and they stay? It's one of those things. So I think to build the company correctly, our goal is to get here in the near term over 10 million. We're pretty close to that now. And then keep the company growing from there on out. We just added capacity of 45 more seats to the building. So as part of that, you've got to invest in your leadership and your engineers and every part of your staff, really. So on the engineering side, it's Cisco training, Microsoft training, CBT nuggets. So self-paced training. On the sales side, it's a lot of vendor programs. It's also conferences we send people to. On the leadership side, we put them through Manage to Win, as well as provide curriculum for them to learn from books and other things that we do, a lot of shadowing, a lot of OJT. In order for your people to get great and to grow with you, you have to train them and have faith in them. So that's where we spend a lot of our time and our resources. And, it's one of those things where if we see a gap, like Harry recently started buying books on emotional intelligence. So it was just one of those things where he did notice a trend where he's wait a minute, we need to work on this particular skill set. So he himself read 3 or 4 books and then started, providing those books to our leadership team saying, hey, I want you to study this material and start to change the way you interact with your staff. There's just a lot of things I think you take for granted that you do. Yeah. And then you look at your people and you're wow, you don't know how to do that. And I never really thought about that. Let's get past this and make you great. So that's what we try to do.
That's great. Jeff, I'm hogging all the question time. You got anything you want to ask?
Yeah, I do. I was curious, Rick. You used to work. Am I assuming correctly that you used to work as a tech and doing all these implementations with your certifications? I imagine you did.
Well, yeah, in the beginning, when I started the company, it was just me. So I was sales, engineering, tech support, finance, you name it. And then as I grew it, the first place I added to was obviously the engineering part of the company, and then in time, when Harry came along, he started off as an engineer, then was rapidly promoted up to IT director, and now he's of course the COO and an owner. But like his ability to really execute on that, and his, to Dave's point earlier, it's I got this, don't worry about it, and it's truly true. So as that's happened, I kept my technical skills on the sales side, but even these days, I mean, really, I'm the pinch hitter to come in and say, we love you, we're going to take care of you. And the VCIOs are the ones that are like, yeah, I can route 12,000 packets a second. That's exactly what you need. Not really that guy anymore. So, but I'm okay with that. I'm totally cool with letting it go. But I did start my career on the engineering side of the house. And then when I was working in Texas and California, I was doing sales engineering for a security company and then a spam and firewall company in 2006. So I kind of went from help desk to engineer to sales engineer to sales dude. So that was kind of my evolution. And at the same time, I was very technical.
Do you think you could run your company without that prior experience?
I don't know. I don't know if we'd be where we are today. I don't know how the circumstances would be different. I had always wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was a little kid. I started my first business when I was 16. The concept was to go to the grocery store and pick up groceries for people. If I known to become Peapod later on and a massive thing, maybe I would have thought through it better at the time. But I would say that, one of the other things I think we're pretty good at as a company is when you have a gap, you try to assess the gap and then try to fill it. So that's a great question. I really don't know where I would be, Jeff, if I didn't have that. I think it helps me understand everything better because I've done it all, but I would say that what I did 20 years ago is very different than what we do today. So I have to be mindful of the fact that it is engineering, but it's not the same type or kind of engineering that, I would have done on NT 4.0 installing, Exchange Server 5, very different world.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because I've noticed or taken notice of whenever I learn about a leader, I try to learn what they did previously to their position. So how did they get there? What do they have to learn in order to get to that high position where they are, they really seem like they're the point person, point man, point woman, whatever it could be. And I really admire those leaders that started from the bottom or started at the base, tasks in their industry and really worked their way up and somehow found themselves along the way learning and growing to the point where they could lead a company. And so I find that fascinating.
No, that's totally cool. And I would say too, a lot of people that grow up in my pedigree don't become the sales director. That's where they struggle. Usually they go into the operations side of the business because that's where they're more comfortable. Where for some reason I took a wrong turn in Albuquerque and wound up on the other side of the house. So, but it worked out great for us. So, I'm super glad that I did.
Yeah, it sounds good. Those are the main couple of questions I had.
So, Rick, I'm curious. With just talking about one thing, it's a little bit on the product side, but I'm curious. The security side of the business, the security side of IT is so challenging. Mm-hmm. And yet it seems a lot of the issues come down to people issues. As a matter of fact, we've had some people that we've known, people we've worked with, and who have had clients who didn't follow their procedures and wired away money or whatever it was. Where do you see the security piece going moving forward so hackers can be, and ransomware type of thing can be better stopped, better prevented by companies? Because it seems like you're floating along, you're just thinking everything's fine, and then you get whacked.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's a constant evolution. So I remember back in college in the 90s, I had floppy disks that were like, warning, this is a college floppy disk. Do not stick it in your home computer, because it was loaded with viruses. Like, that was the thing of the day. Like, antivirus programs and software were not good. So you had to actually segment your floppies to make sure you protected your home computer from your, college computer, so your 40 meg hard drive wouldn't get a virus. I think that, as we've gone through time and the evolution of technology, there's no question the end user issue is the biggest question, right? It's the end user education problem. And we've tried to develop solutions to that problem, such as, there's a zillion solutions. We use Ningio, Know-Before, Lunch and Learns. The VCIOs do Lunch and Learns, and they do end user training. Every time we have a new variant, we send it out to our customer base saying, hey, guess what? Capital One got hacked a couple days ago. Make sure you're watching your credit. Make sure you have an Equifax. If you think you were hacked, freeze your credit. Like, we try to be extremely proactive with our client base, but you just try to mitigate your risk the best you can. Like, on all of our end user desktops, they have antivirus and anti-malware. Like, they have to have both. It's not enough to just have one anymore. So we try to keep up with the times. And I think it's always going to be kind of a cat and mouse game to make sure that, we're ahead of it. One of the things that we've invested in heavily is backup. So our backup solution is an in-house backup solution based on the Veeam platform. But every customer has either a NAS or a BDR on site, and then their data is replicated to both Providence, Rhode Island, and Las Vegas, Nevada. So you've got one copy that is in use and 3 copies at rest. And hopefully, based on the technology that's out today, like, it doesn't figure out, like, I can infect this computer over the network, then jump over the internet and infect this, So it's just different layers of protection to try to get there. But yeah, I think it's always going to be, there's too much money in it, and the wire transfer thing, the man-in-the-middle attacks. All of our customers are now on 2FA because we had so many customers that were getting hacked on O365, putting rules in the executive assistant's mailboxes to forward off the CEO's mail. And then, nobody knew what was going on. So now everybody's on 2FA. We monitor rule creation in Office 365. We monitor logins from any site that's not in the US, and anomalies, right? So what's Bob doing in Duluth today? Like, last time I saw him, he was in Providence yesterday. So we're trying to get smarter about how we protect our clients. But it's always going to be an ongoing challenge. It just is.
Yeah,
but it also is why we're in business, right?
Well, that's right. That's part of it. And for those in our audience who don't know TFA, correct me if I'm wrong, but 2-factor authentication, right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Using something and something you have as a form of protection. Instead of just having a password, you actually get a text message with a code or something like that as an added layer of protection.
Yeah. So I'm curious, you look back over your career, Rick, and the tipping points, the significant turns you've made, decisions you've made, things you've learned. What's like the most significant lesson you've learned leadership wise over these 24 years or whatever you've been in the industry or beyond that?
There's so many.
Significant. You can give a few. You don't have to give one. It's all right.
Well, I think it's important to invest in your people, to develop your people, and to also give your people the room to grow. People are going to make mistakes. Some of them will make horrific mistakes. And then it's your job to assess, was this just something that they just weren't aware of? And can this be a learning experience from them? We're in the technology business. Things happen all the time. So how can I help them grow? How can I enable them to succeed? And how can I, trust them as we grow the company and let them expand and become more than they are, so that we as a whole can become more than we are? It's 50 people, which is basically where we are. It's not the Rick show anymore or the Harry show. There's a whole bunch of other players playing this game. So you've got to make sure that they're empowered and able to succeed. Otherwise, we won't be able to go any further. You'll hit that wind tunnel and drop back down again, which is always the fear when you hit this level of size.
Well, it's interesting is I have trained a series of people on your support side of how you've done a good job on hiring. We're working on our Hire the Best system to bring out a new massive package with training and stuff. And you've done a great job on the hiring to find people who work well together because they seem to enjoy each other. They seem to be very comfortable communicating even when there's a problem. and they feel part of a team. They feel part of a tribe or community with what you guys do.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of what we built. I mean, you can't care deeply about your customers and not care deeply about your people. And I think that's everyone feels that. We've been fortunate enough to win Best Places to Work 4 years in a row now. 2 years is number one, and the other 2 years in the top 4. So that really comes down to building a team that works well together, that's happy, that supports each other, providing great benefits, and being there for them. They have their challenges and problems, as everyone's life does. And I appreciate that, Dave. It's a great compliment, to what we've built here. And I want to be happy to come to work every day, and I want everybody else to be too. There are days that are rough, but we all have to work, so let's make the most of it and be happy about what we're doing. So.
Yeah, seems like a good group. Jeff, you got any other questions?
No, I think that's actually a great ending right there. I'd love to, before we sign off, Rick, I'd love to see the values behind you. You mentioned those at the beginning of the episode here. For anybody who is not watching, Rick is sitting in one of their conference rooms, and they have all of their values, all 6 of them, framed and up on the wall behind Rick. And I just love, could you go through each one of those real quick? I can only see 2 in the background there.
Sure. So the first 2 behind me are, let me look at them while I'm doing them. So, I mean, care deeply, I've mentioned a few times during the podcast, and that was the number 1 core value. And what are core values? Let's start there, because I think it's different to every organization. I mean, ours are the stars to navigate the ship by, right? So these are all the decision criteria you should be evaluating yourself against when you're in the middle of making a decision, or there's a problem, or you're having a problem communicating with a team member or a client. So, am I caring deeply, which is the first tenet, or the first value that we have. And I always come back to that. That's starts with, me in the corridor, right? Do you care deeply? Are you taking care of the customer? Well, maybe I'm getting a little upset. Let's reevaluate that. The innovate relentlessly comes back to what we were talking about, like the 5G conversation that Dave mentioned 5 years ago, the Azure conversation we had today. We live in a changing world, and it's hard to be, run a business, be part Swami and all that stuff at the same time. But that's kind of what it takes. You've got to watch out for what's coming down the road, because if you wait too long to pivot, here's a great example. I was in a conversation with a group of VARs, value-added resellers, right? We're an MSP, in January, and there were 30 companies in the room. My company was one of the only ones out of like 4 out of the 30 that would still be in business without back-end vendor rebates. Think about that for a second. That's scary. You know what I mean? That means that they're not making enough money to even break even for their normal core business without waiting on those rebates. So you've got to be innovative in order to move the company forward. And I think we did that back in 2014, when we really pushed to shift to being an MSP from kind of an MSP VAR where we were before then. So I'll keep moving here. So the next one is service sincerely. The client's interests come first, and we're here because of the client, and if we ever forget that, we're going to be out of business. So take a look at what the problem is and work through it as best you can, but make sure that you're doing the best that you can for the client. The next one, collaborate feverishly, is about collaborating internally on problems to make sure that we're solving them, back to great internal communication, but also with the client. Like, we're always trying to work. Projects are always a challenge, right? Because the client has an expectation, we have an expectation, there's a timeline. So how do we start to do better at working with our clients and our team to make sure everybody knows what's going on? Like, if there's a license key in step 7, they should know about that in step 4. So we're always trying to work to fix that problem. Listen earnestly. Sometimes we all hear what we want to hear and disregard the rest. Thank you, Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel. So, take a step back and listen to what's going on, and don't just assume that you have the answer. A lot of times that persistence of, I know what I'm doing and I don't know what you're doing, is what causes the biggest time gaps, right? And then at the very end is improve eternally, which is really just about, what are you doing to make sure that you're getting better every day for what you are? And that might mean, studying a new concept, or working with someone and learning something, or just even in your own mind, getting rid of a preconceived notion that you thought was true that isn't. How do I keep the ball moving forward and make things better? So,
and I'd like to add just a couple of thoughts. First of all, Rick, you had at least one version of values before this, and so as a leader, you felt you had kind of moved beyond those. You wanted to move to new ones, and then you came with these. And I think leaders need to understand that you don't establish these values and exactly the way they're worded the first time remains forever.
Well, so two stories on that. So one, the other core values that we have are part of the H SMB story. So when we rebranded, we wanted a new identity and to really hone. We had 10 core values at H SMB, and they were one-word values like integrity. Like by having the two-word values, it gives a lot more meaning and depth. And it's important to know that I cannot take credit for this. This is Harry's brainchild. Like he put a lot of time and thought into what these mean and what they were and how he wanted to portray them to both our clients and our people. And, I was probably a small percentage of that solution where he really worked hard to really refine these and make them great for our company. So.
Well, and the second thing I wanted to bring up was just, Jeff, you're seeing it and pointing it out, and I think it's really good. But it's clear, you can tell by the way Rick talks about them. Vertikal6 really focuses on these, communicates about them. I know we recommend, that employees are encouraged to share a story on how they live out their values, at least once a month. I don't know how often you guys do it, but it's clear it's part of the conversation regularly in your environment. And that's why people are able to live them out, and they're so powerful.
Well, and I also think too, when you're a leader, and Harry and I talked about this a lot when we first started the Vertikal6 brand, like these core values are a reflection of us, and what we're trying to accomplish, because you can't live them if they're not true. Like you can't want to be a service, care deeply based culture if all you care about is sales and nothing else, right? It just isn't going to work because, and it's not saying it's bad. It just isn't aligned to what your nature is, right? So it doesn't work. And I think because of the people that we've carefully chosen over the years to be part of the team and us, that's how the core values work, is because when you come into the company, a big part of the interview process is making sure that you are aligned to the core values. Like we do criminal background checks on everybody. One guy's like, oh yeah, he's great. He's a referral from another person that worked here. This person didn't know this. Guy came back, he had 2 B and E's, not a good core value fit, right?
What's a B and E?
Breaking and entering. Like he had, like criminal convictions on his record. But, it's like part of the interview process is really vetting people out and seeing, who are you? Like, so here's a scenario. Customer calls up 7 p.m. screaming at you. How do you handle that? I hang the phone up and go back to the movies. Okay, probably not a good idea. You know what I mean? Like, that's a radical example, but I think it's true that, as we bring people on, over the years, we've learned what to look for in the in people when we interview them. So.
Yeah, well, that's great. I like it.
Well, this has been a great conversation, Rick. If anybody wants to learn more about Vertikal6, where can they go?
They can go to vertikal6.com, vertikal6.com. And if you want to know more, you can reach out to me personally. My contact information is on the website.
Great. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, great catching up with you, Rick.
Yeah, same here, David. Thank you for all that you've done for us over the years. I really appreciate it. And Jeff, thanks for being an awesome and gracious podcast host.
Do the best I can.
Awesome.